Thank you. So I'm Hakan. Hakan is the Turkish variety, I would say, of Hakan, which is very Swedish. I am the founder of Luvly. Luvly develops next generation car technology, I would say. Though my presentation is going to be more probably about why we do this than what we actually do, depending a bit on how much time I spend on what. I'm an economist. I'm not an engineer. I employ engineers, but the ideas that Luvly is based on are mine, and they are from the heart of an economist. And these ideas are based on sort of an analysis of what is happening and why it doesn't work. And the simple answer is that we are using massive capacity in order to achieve very little. And this is something that sort of permeates society and what we do. And in that process also, of course, we create a lot of waste, massive amounts of waste. And since I love cars, I started a company a long time ago that tried to develop tech that would sort of deal with this problem when it comes to cars. This is a fairly proper illustration of what cars are in terms of resources that we use, in terms of the capacity, the potency of that vehicle, and what we actually use it for. So we build today heavier and heavier and bigger and more potent cars, right? They're normally today around 2 tons. But if you buy a new SUV today, it would, in many cases, sort of climb up to 3 tons. And it could take 5 people or more for 500 kilometers or more at 200 kilometers an hour or more. And that's fine and nice. You know, it's a beautiful thing. But the fact is that that car transports one person 36 kilometers or less a day inside of a city. And that's all it does. Statistically, it's all it does. I mean, at the low end, 80% of all cars are used for that purpose. At the high end, statistically, in many places, 100% of trips with cars are in that sector. Very short, very slow, maybe 1.5 person in the car. So it's a massive waste of resources. And what, of course, we suggest is that this has to change. We have to use much less resources. We have to build cars that are far less potent because we don't use that. And then we have to use much more of what they can deliver. We have to sort of build cars that actually sort of deliver what we use them for. Now, of course, it'd be nice if they could do a bit more. I mean, we go 32, 36 kilometers. It might be nice to be able to do that tomorrow as well. But much more than that is not necessary. Much more than that is hurtful. And this is this is the doomsday picture, because we all think that, yeah, nice, you know, we have electric cars now. We just have to make more electric cars and fewer ICE cars, and then the problem is solved. If you look at these graphs, this is what CO2 emissions will sort of evolve as. In a model which no one believes in a model where we actually produce the same amount of cars tomorrow and the day after tomorrow and so on, about 60 million cars a year, Nobody believes that. Everybody thinks that we're going to produce more cars. But this is taking the assumption that we will produce the same amount of cars. And the yellow graph is what happens if we produce ICE cars. The blue graph is what happens if we produce only BEV cars, only electric cars from now on, not one ICE car. We still recycle the same amount of cars, close to 30 million a year, and they would all be ICE cars. And this is still what happens. No reduction in CO2 emissions. Now, there is the orange line, which of course is what I do. It's what would happen if we would actually produce cars that weigh very much less and use very much fewer resources to do what they do. The orange line depicts cars that weigh about 400 kilos. They use a fifth, so 20% of the resources that a normal car today uses to just build them. They do the same basically in their usage. This is the only graph, the only way that we can reduce CO2 emissions from cars. Now, FIA, my French is not that good, Fédération Internationale Automobile, something like that. They love cars as well. They've done that for a long time. They come to the same conclusions. Basically, everybody come to the same conclusions, but the FIA had some nice graphics that we could steal. So that's what we've done. And what they say is, okay, there is one way to actually decrease emissions, and it's to make cars lighter. They are aiming for a ton in 2050, which from our perspective, of course, is ridiculous. But it's a good point. It would really change things. They also conclude that not only CO2 emissions are affected by a decreased weight of vehicles. Lots of other environmental factors are also affected. One such has been discussed here. It's particulates, emissions of small particles in urban air that kills us. And fun fact, electric cars actually emit more particles than ICE cars on average, because they are heavier. And the most particles today come from tires and road wear. So more powerful cars, heavier cars emit more particles. Also bad for people. And then comes another thing that is very rarely discussed, and this is the case of safety in traffic. Heavy cars are really normally very safe for the driver and the passengers in the car. It's what we call first-person safety. But they are very often downright dangerous for everybody else. I would possibly use the Cybertruck as the worst example. It's a killer machine. I wouldn't want to be on a road with that truck is. But the same is true for every car. Very big cars are dangerous in traffic. Not only a nuisance for everybody else because they take up all the road and you can't fit in between them and so on, and they actually clutter the streets and destroy the streets and all that, but they're also downright dangerous for everybody but the person driving it and the person traveling in the car. So, why do we not do something else today? I think there are basically two reasons. One of them is that the automotive industry has developed over a long time, and they've developed their tech, they've developed the way they do things, and they've refined it to the extreme. They're incredibly good at building cars, but they find it very difficult to build small cars, light cars, that are profitable. So we are convinced that we want big cars, but I think there's a good reason why we're convinced that we want big cars. And the second reason is that it's actually technically difficult to build a light vehicle that is sustainable, that is safe for the passengers and other road users, and that is affordable. Building such a vehicle that is not affordable is actually quite easy. But building an affordable, light, safe vehicle is difficult. And this is what we've done. We've solved that. We've come up with a technology that allows us to build really light, very sustainable, extremely light. The little car that you see in the picture is the same size as a smart car, the first generation smart car. It's a roomy vehicle. It weighs 400 kilos. We equip it with 32 kilos of batteries. And it runs for 100 kilometers in city traffic. It's built in a way with a tech that allows us to build it really rapidly and very light, and it's cheap. And what we've used as was announced, it's basically flat panels from composites that we assemble using connectors, and then we put energy absorbers on the outside of it. So it's built pretty much like a Formula One car. It's the same structure. We have a strong safety cell from sandwich composites. It's not very good looking, it's boxy and ugly, but it's strong and it's stiff, and it would protect the passengers. And then we protect the passengers again with an energy absorption zone in front and one in back. Simple, affordable structures. And on the outside, we put a very thin, a very sturdy thermoplastic shell. And the processes that we employ to do this are so simple that it can be done in a very small, decentralized assembly line, close to where it's going to be used, which also allows us to fully utilize modern sort of logistics without utilizing them. We can ship flat packs, and flat packs are compact, so we don't ship air. We minimize the cost and the environmental effects of transport, of logistics. And as I said, they're affordable. Today, this vehicle, a small car that does 90 kilometers an hour, that would transport 2 people within a city with ease, could very well be sold at below 10,000 euros. We have a target price of far below that, 5,000 or 6,000. We equip it with, as I said, very small batteries, batteries that allow you to swap batteries. So you don't have to have charging stations. You don't have to have massive infrastructure for charging. They're so small that even the ordinary house outlet easily allows you to charge them. The conclusion from all this is not only that we have to build light, small cars, but more also that the type of car that we have today, the type of car that we build and use today, is obsolete, the way we do it. They might very well be around for highway transport, but we will face a future where as was said, a much bigger variety of possible transportation, means of transportation, is affordable, is available. Otherwise, we won't make it. We won't survive as an economy. Thank you.